On today's episode of the Locked On Knicks podcast, I'm joined by Locked On Magic host Philip Rossman-Reich to preview tonight's game and tell you why it's such an important test for the New York Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's up, guys? You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. We're going to get into it with Philip in just a sec. But first, I wanted to remind you that your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. That's right. We're introducing the Locked On Knicks daily newsletter, the one-stop shop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com to get writing from Alex and I, our team of national writers, and, of course, Josh Lloyd giving you the latest in fantasy basketball. That's LockedOnDaily.com. And start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. We are currently, I think if I'm remembering correctly, 9th in subscription heads out of the 30 pods. That is pretty good. I would love to see us get to number 1. We should not be behind the Raptors. We cannot let Sean Woodley and Locked On Raptors win. So please subscribe. Who's talking to you? I'm Gavin, Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster, your Saturday host of the Locked On NBA podcast. And I want to remind you that today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Remember to subscribe when you're watching on YouTube. If you want to have us on the go, easy peasy, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform of choice. In the comments, tell us why we're going to beat the Orlando Magic. Tell me why the Knicks are going to beat the Orlando Magic. And then head over to Locked On Magic. Comment on this same video because it was a crossover episode. And tell Philip Rossman-Reich and the Magic fans why we're about to kick their butts. Without further ado, let's get into it right now with Philip. Really fun game, really fun preview. It all starts now.
And for those of you listening to Locked On Knicks, hello, my name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the host of Locked On Magic. For those listening to Locked On Magic, I'm now joined by the host of Locked On Knicks, Gavin, Schall. We've been frequent guests on each other's podcasts, and now we have a game with some meaning. So, Gavin, I hope you've had a miserable day, and I hope Tuesday is just as miserable as today is.
Thanks, Philip. It's good to see you too. It's the rise of the Orlando Magic. I've always gotten such nice greetings when I've come on this show. You guys went 12 out of 13. All of a sudden, it's terrible day this, terrible day that. You know what? That's cool. We're competition now. Bring it on.
I mean, we got Paolo at the NBA store in New York apparently telling kids, if you buy Magic gear, I got you, I'll pay for it. So we're trying to bribe those fans
Sure.
to get here. I made this joke to my friend Mason Williams of Magic on SI. I'm just glad the Magic didn't bring any flags to plant at midcourt against the Brooklyn Nets. It's been that kind of weekend. But all humor and kidding aside, Gavin, it is great to see you again, and it is great to be here on the day of, I guess, as this is being released, the day of a really big game in the NBA Cup. And considering the Magic and Knicks don't seem to be going anywhere, the 3 and the 4, the fight for the 3 and the 4 seed is going to be a real one for the rest of the year. I thought this was a good opportunity not only to look forward to Tuesday night's big game in the NBA Cup, but also to kind of get a temperature check of where we see each other's teams at. And I'm, again, if you're a Knicks fan listening to this may be old hat. If you're a Magic fan listening to this, my segment may be old hat. But I want to start with you and the Knicks. What's the general feeling of the Knicks? Because I've watched a few games of theirs, and you see it. They still very much look like a team that's trying to figure their pieces out, but it's also a Tom Thibodeau team that doesn't defend. What's been kind of the general feeling about the Knicks through the first quarter of the season now?
Yeah, it's been weird. I think is maybe the biggest, or maybe not the biggest, but perhaps the best word for it, just in the sense that there have been really high highs. They have a top 3. I didn't check this morning, but as of yesterday, a top 3 offense in the NBA. Only I assume could have gone up after that Pelicans beat down. And they've looked just completely explosive at times. And it's this weird thing where you go back 2 years, the Knicks had the 3rd best offense in basketball. But the process to get there was just so brutal and grinding, and Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, and Jalen Brunson basically taking turns ISOing. And when Julius Randle, and to an even greater extent, RJ would inevitably brick a good amount of those shots, it was Mitchell Robinson getting 12 offensive rebounds a game, or Isaiah Hartenstein rotating in to get 5 offensive rebounds a game. And they just kind of got it done through brute force. And now they're having these beautiful mind moments. If you watch those borderline basketball pornography, 2013-14 Spurs highlights, that's the kind of ball they've been playing. Games where they have 21 assists on their first 24 shots, like setting records for assists and a half, assists in a game, threes and a half, threes in a game, and so on and so forth. And they can hit these real highs. And yet outside of a game 3 games ago where they blew out the Denver Nuggets, they haven't really done it against great competition. They've particularly faltered, which is why this game is so interesting to me, against defenses that are capable of switching a lot, which I'm not sure how much Orlando does, but I know they have the personnel to do, and even more so defenses that are physical and can kind of grind down the Knicks' like point of attack offense. So I'm really fascinated to see how this one goes. And then the other big wrinkle, which I assume you're going to get to at some point, is Mikal Bridges, who had a breakout game with 31 points. Obviously, when you, my fans are not going to be happy that I'm bringing this up again. When you give up 5 first-round picks for a guy, I've been told I'm not allowed to use that phrase anymore. Generally, there's a lot of pressure on him to perform
5
immediately.
5 player opportunities.
Sure, there you go. There you go. 5 player opportunities. For 1 player opportunity, you expect that opportunity to go really, really well. And it has largely not. He's been allergic to free throws, only 13 of them taken so far this season. His defense has been really lackluster for a guy who's 3 years removed from second in DPOY voting. And he shot the ball really well from the corners, not well from, and by not well from the non-corners, I mean, going into last night's game, he was 0th percentile. I don't know if that's a word, but 0th percentile in the NBA in non-corner threes, elite from the mid-range, allergic to the rim. If anything's been weird, it's been Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, and obviously, like, the Knicks put up these really gaudy offensive numbers, but you mentioned like Mikal Bridges still getting his feet wet. Orlando fans, I think, can relate a little bit. They're maybe not to the same degree because they didn't give up as much, but Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was shooting less than 30% from 3 until these last 3 games, and now he's like, his wife just had their fifth child. Like, now he seems to like finally have his legs under him. So maybe it's a little bit of impatience, waiting for some of these pieces to come together. And obviously, like, when I look at this Knicks team, yes, the Magic are going to switch a lot. You will see the Magic switch almost 1 through 5. Maybe not with Karl-Anthony Towns, but with them starting Wendell Carter and Goga Bitadze together, they're going to have a presence in the paint, and that's going to be interesting. But the thing that I think about with this Knicks team is their ability to spread the floor with all the shooting threats they have. And it may not even necessarily be about the shooting. The shooting threats they have is going to be a major stress for this Magic defense. But like you said, I think getting tested by a really strong defense is really key at this stage of the season. To that point, then, the Knicks are still 4th in the East. They're still over 500. They're still winning a lot of games, even if it doesn't feel completely right. How much do you attribute that to making all the changes they made from their team last season? And even just bringing Karl-Anthony Towns, a week before training camp begins. How much do you attribute like some of this to is just like, this is a new group still figuring each other out?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. The offensive chemistry has been fairly seamless, and kind of the amazing thing about it is, like, as I just said, like 3rd, if not higher now in offensive rating, and yet it feels like there is a lot of room for growth there. Like, if Mikal can get back to being who he is, which again, like in my critique of him, like, again, he's coming off a 31-point game where he hit, I think, 5 or 6 threes. Like, he certainly looked a lot better. Like, if that's the Mikal Bridges or somewhere in that range they get every night, like, there is an even higher offensive ceiling. And that side of the floor, I don't want to say it's figured out, because obviously there's a lot of room to grow. And I still think they have yet to totally unlock like Karl-Anthony Towns as a passing hub the way they had with Isaiah Hartenstein. Like, we've certainly seen stretches where he's been really dominant as a passer. And I think other teams are starting to key into it, but you have 3 really elite cutters around him in OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, and Mikal Bridges. So there's avenues to get even better. Jalen Brunson, like, just kind of the last like 10, 12 games has really started playing like Jalen Brunson. His passing is on a higher level than ever. But defensively, I think, is where you see kind of those like chemistry wrinkles that they haven't quite figured out. Yesterday felt like a real step in the right direction. Like, the level of connectivity they showed, rotating like off the ball, was really impressive, and like more in line with what you've seen from Knicks teams in years past. The last 2 games have just started using Karl-Anthony Towns at the level where he's like pretty strictly been in drop and pick and roll coverage most of the year. That's a defense that he had his best season playing like that style of heavy pressure in, I think it was 21-22 in Minnesota the year before they traded for Gobert. He, for whatever reason, looks much more athletic when he's allowed to go forward and kind of initiate contact than in a drop. I don't really know if that's like a biomechanical issue, but when he's in a drop, does not look athletic at all. And it's just a major departure from the Knicks teams of Tom Thibodeau years past, where like the moniker was 48 minutes of rim protection. And that was kind of the basis for them having a consistent solidity, even when they were playing poor perimeter defenders. Now the perimeter defenders are better on paper, but when Mikal Bridges is not playing up to that level and you have Towns who's like very lackluster around the basket, or at least inconsistent there, you certainly have some flaws and communication issues galore, particularly early in the year. It seems like they are, like, again, inching in the right direction there. And I think this Orlando game will be a great test of that, certainly more so than the Pelicans were.
Yeah, I mean, undoubtedly, I joke with you, and this is no offense to our friends at Locked On Pelicans. The Pelicans right now don't count. Like, it's just they're just injured, an injured mess. But look, I don't know what the Knicks record is in these situations, but you still got to beat the bad teams. Like, being able to beat the bad teams, decimate the bad teams, like they all count the same as wins. You still got to be able to do them. And obviously that's a big part of it. Jalen Brunson, how does he fit into all this? And how has he kind of found his way? Because like, he's still putting up the numbers that we expect. And if there's one thing that as a Magic fan I'm worried about, is Jalen Brunson still the kind of shooter that can break a good defense? Like, you could play great defense on him and he'll still make the shots. But how is he kind of, not like limiting himself, but how is he integrating those new players in while still being him?
No, it's a great question, because I think it was a struggle for him early in the year, like particularly, and this will be the real test of this game against defenses that switch. He has at times fallen into matchup hunting, which is how the Knicks have played the last few years. And again, that works if you have an elite defense, which at least in the playoffs, the Knicks have had the last 2 years, and you have league best offensive rebounding. Just giving Jalen Brunson the ball and saying, hey, shoot every single time is pretty good offense, because he's going to be much more efficient than 98%, maybe 99% of NBA players taking bad shots. And when he misses, you can gobble up those rebounds. When you don't score, you can play great defense. This year, the formula is a little bit different. And when, as a group, you don't have those super efficient shooting nights, you're probably going to lose those games now, because the Knicks have been, again, like a below average defense so far this year. And they are highly reliant on like having those nights where they hit like 45% of their threes and have like a 60% EFG as a team. And I think a lot of that comes down to how Jalen manages the game and how he decides to leverage mismatches. And against Orlando, unlike most teams, when they switch, like it'll be a mismatch to some extent because Jalen Brunson's really good. It won't be a major mismatch because he's going at Franz Wagner or Jonathan Isaac, which are like going to be tough matchups for him. And teams have started games now with big defenders on him, knowing they want to be able to switch that pick and roll between him and Karl-Anthony Towns, which we can talk about next segment. I'm curious how Orlando will approach that. All that is to say, against teams that don't switch, you can see like the just substantial leap his passing has made, putting up career best numbers. I think over the last 10 games, he's been just over 9 assists per game. Last season, he was only at 6.5. He's clearly made a leap in that capacity, but it's all about like, all right, I have a mismatch. How can I leverage this to create a good shot for Towns, for OG, for Mikal, versus like, how can I get a basket myself? I think it's the key. He's certainly been getting better at that. But again, like the few times it's been tested by good switchy defenses, most recently against Dallas, that's faltered a little bit. He's sought out his offense a little bit too much. And at times when he hasn't, it feels like the rest of his teammates have let him down.
Yeah, and again, like that's going to be the chess match involved in this game. If you haven't been able to tell already, the Knicks have one of the best offenses in the league. The Magic have one of the best defenses in the league. And like you said, they'll be able to defend Brunson, Towns, all those players differently, really possession to possession at times. So we'll get into a little bit of how what makes the Magic's defense tick and how they'll match up with the Knicks. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. What is Prize Picks? Well, Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with more than 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. There is no giant player pools. There is no weird salary cap system. There's no confusing point system. It's just you and the numbers. That's the way it should be. And it's so easy to find ways to win. They have their injury replacement guarantee. If a player leaves in the first half, does not play in the second half, they'll give you that pick back. You can even put together a group that will enable you to get your money back with just like 3 out of 5 correct. It's so much fun to play. It's a daily fantasy game that I play when I play daily fantasy. So whether you're getting into action during the Magic Knicks game on Monday or on Tuesday, or looking at the NFL ahead this weekend, Prize Picks is your game. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's again, download the app, use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
And we also want to tell you about our good friends over at Game Time. Game Time is my favorite ticketing site, and they have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I am in the market for a Knicks-Wizards ticket. I'm going to be in Maryland for the Christmas season, visiting my girlfriend's family, and lo and behold, while I'm there, the Knicks are in D.C. twice. So I went over to Game Time. I used Game Time Picks. I found the lowest price tickets you could find anywhere on the market for that second game, as low as $30, which I hate to say it, you can never do at MSG. So maybe head out to DC and use Game Time Picks. Curation makes it easy to save on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. My favorite part is the lowest price guarantee, which means you find a lower price ticket on a different site. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
We are back here on a crossover episode as the Magic play the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden on TNT on Tuesday night in the finale of NBA Cup Group A. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the host of Locked On Magic, joined again by the host of Locked On Knicks in Gavin Schall. And Gavin, we were just talking about the New York Knicks offense. I'm curious what you want to know about the Magic's defense as we get ready for this matchup.
Yeah, so I got to see Orlando about 2.5 weeks ago here in Phoenix, and I was impressed. Obviously, the Suns did not have Kevin Durant. They did not have Bradley Beal that game, but it just feels like similar to playing the Thunder, similar to playing the Celtics, where there are no good options. There's no one to pick on. Like you are in hell no matter who is on the basketball. I'm sure you saw this, I think, right before that game. I'm not sure if it's still true. B-Ball Index put out this statistic where it's like our best guard stoppers, our best forward stoppers. Top 2 guard stoppers were Anthony Black and Jalen Suggs. Top 2 wing stoppers were Franz Wagner and KCP. And I'm like, Jonathan Isaac's probably their best defender. That is absolutely insane. And they closed that Suns game with all 5 of those guys on the floor. And I'm like, unless you have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, I don't really know what you do about this. Now that I praised Orlando and made myself sick to my stomach, my main question is, how do you think they start the game on the Jalen Brunson Towns pick and roll? Because again, I mentioned it before, but it seems like what the best teams are doing is they're putting a big wing on Jalen. They're putting a mobile big on Cat and saying, hey, we're going to switch this every time. If you want to play out of attacking our quote unquote slow big, go for it. I'm assuming Orlando would be a little bit more comfortable with that when Jonathan Isaac is in the game than Goga or Wendell, even though I know both those guys can move their feet a little bit, but I'm curious how you think they approach that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it is an NBA Cup game. It isn't quite the playoffs. I don't think they're putting in any super special packages quite yet. Sure. I think it's still about, let's do our base defense first and, make adjustments. Like Jamal Mosley's really big on saying when you're playing against the very best players, you have to mix up coverages. You can't just throw the same thing at them. They'll figure it out. So having said that, I do think there'll be times where the Magic switch. There will be times where the Magic maybe blitz and they have Goga Batadze jump that screen, try and turn him back. Frankly, there's going to be a lot of times where Jalen Suggs is just going to fight his way through that screen and get to a spot before Jalen Brunson can. That's such a big part of the Magic defense is Jalen Suggs just eats up screens on his own and just blows up screen and rolls just by getting over the screen quicker than the screen can get set. And so I think we'll see a lot of that. I do think the Magic will start the game with Suggs on Brunson. I think that is probably how they'll start. But if Suggs picks up an early foul, KCP will take him. If there's a switch or there's a transition moment, they're comfortable with Franz taking him. I'm gonna sound like Coach Mose here. It's gonna be a little bit by committee, but I think the goal for the Magic will be blitz, keep them on the perimeter, rely on their rotation, rely on Wendell Carter is starting right now as the backup, as the power forward. Wendell Carter will be there to help protect the rim a little bit, protect the paint a little bit when Goga jumps out or Goga leaps out on him. So as long as they can get Goga to kind of follow Cat and make sure he doesn't pop out too much, I think that the Magic are going to really just rely on Jalen Suggs to kind of smother Brunson a little bit and be physical with him and try and knock him off his game.
Yeah, and I think, look, I mean, Suggs is as good as that and like as well built as any point guard in the league is, maybe this side of Drew Holiday, to like bother Jalen, who is like extremely strong physically and like can generally take that kind of pounding. Like Suggs is just like a different kind of athlete, different kind of animal in that respect. I do wonder if Brunson is able to punish like Goga blitzing out on him, who like a guy who really impressed me with his athleticism is someone who hasn't gotten to watch him play all that much in Phoenix. But what Jalen's been really good at this year and started later last season when the Knicks had that rash of injuries and teams started just like relentlessly trapping him. He's gotten really good at stringing out that trap, keeping the second defender engaged, and then splitting the double team, sometimes off the dribble, but typically with the pass, and letting either Towns or Josh Hart very often, because a lot of times the worst defender is on Josh Hart and the Knicks use him as a screener to be kind of a short role playmaker, sort of like Draymond Green on those vintage Warriors teams, and play 4-on-3. Do you think, I mean, to your point, like Orlando's going to try different things, but when they do blitz, like one is like Goga, like mobile enough to recover really quickly in those situations? Like will he linger? Will he just kind of show and let Suggs get there and then trust Suggs one-on-one? Like how's Orlando going to approach that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a blitz. It's going to be more like a blitz and show. It'll be Goga kind of blitzing and waiting for Jalen to recover. But the thing that like this Magic team is so good at is communicating their rotation. So if Josh Hart kind of is setting the screen or goes to that short roll, or Cat's in that short roll, Wendell Carter's going to step up and then Franz will step in as the low man. They'll form fit and Goga will end up, going on that blitz and then cutting and then running down to the corner to either contest that three or to defend the 3-point line, and Wendell will fill his man. So there's like the thing that is the hallmark of this Magic defense is they're physical. Like they are going to hit you. They're going to hit you pretty hard. If you're not that we need to be too friendly here, but if you're a fan of 90s Knicks style basketball, like the Magic are probably playing as close to that style of basketball as you can play in the modern NBA without hand checking, with all the like hands off rules that the NBA wants. They communicate and fill each other and fill for each other so well. And look, New York's a really strong offensive team. They're going to get them a few times. Like I'm beginning to think like this game's going to be very similar to the Magic playing the Lakers a few weeks ago. And now it's a back-to-back end of a road trip for the Magic, but Lakers still put up 118 on them. It was not a strong defensive game for Orlando. And the Lakers are a top 5 offense, kind of like how the Knicks, you wonder how the offense fares against top defenses. I'm kind of wondering how the defense fares against top offenses, because the only top offense they've really played is, I think, OKC and Dallas. And those are like right after the Paolo injury. They haven't really played a lot of top offenses. The Lakers are one of the few. And the Lakers, they lost. The Magic still won the game. They found a way to win that game. They punished a bad defensive team. They were able to make shots in that game, which is the other wild card in this one. But the Magic struggled defensively a little bit with the shooting and with how the Lakers were able to spread the floor on them. So how physical are the Magic going to be able to be? How much can they rely on rotations against a quality offensive team? That to me is going to be one of the big questions in this game.
All right. You want to tell me a little bit about Franz Wagner? Obviously, everyone saw the shot against the Lakers. Like he's played, I think, not at an all-star level, at an all-NBA level since Paolo Banchero went down. Like what do you think are the keys to his leaps coming off a season that, like, as someone who's a big fan of his, have had him on a lot of fantasy basketball teams over the last few years, like shooting drop off last year. I think we talked about it a little bit in our offseason pod. Like, I don't think there were any concerns in Orlando about that contract. I think everyone was really excited about it, but obviously like a major get right season for him so far.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is just, he's had to step up. I think a lot of a lot of Magic fans, if there's a complaint from a lot of Magic fans, it's that Franz never feels as involved in the offense as he should. It always felt like he's more comfortable like being in the background, being the guy that catches the ball off a rotation and attacks, gets some pick and rolls, but isn't the lead guy. And, I've seen so many people be like, Franz isn't involved in the offense. Why isn't he touching the ball? And he'd be like, oh, he's only taking fewer shots than Paolo. Like he's second on the team in field goals attempted. So it's not like he's not involved, but he's never been involved like this. And, I think Jamal Mosley really kind of said this at one point. They had to have the discussion with him and say like, hey, you're going to be uncomfortable with this. This isn't really your style to be the guy. We need you to be the guy. We need you to step up and take some of these shots that Paolo would take, to take a mid-range jumper. I actually looked this up. He has taken, according to NBA.com, he's taken, I think, 32 mid-range jumpers already this season. He had 47 total last year. He's unlocked like that second level of the game. He's a 3-level scorer now. And it's just been, the shot diet's still there. He's still getting to the basket. He's still an elite finisher at the rim. His 3-point shot has come around. I know he's coming off of an 0-for-6 game, but his 3-point shot is reliable now, and it didn't have to be elite. It just had to be reliable. And now he's able to create off the dribble. Now he's making passes. Now he's making plays. There's still some hiccups. He still turns the ball over a little bit more than he used to when he wasn't in this role. But the Magic really have had no choice but to say, hey, we need you to step up. And to their pleasant surprise, or maybe not surprise, maybe they knew they had this in him and he just needed the confidence to do it. Franz has done it and has played at this elite level. What's on the line? Why this game matters or doesn't, I don't know. I don't know how you still feel. In the summer, you seemed very ambivalent about this game, whereas I was super excited. We'll talk a little bit more about what to expect on Tuesday night as NBA Cup group play comes to a close. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But if you're like us and stumbling over our words, this is a quick word from our friends over at BetterHelp. Gavin, I don't know about you. What's your favorite part of the holidays?
Oh, I think being around family is probably number one.
Being around family. I think so too. Look, I'm Jewish. The holidays aren't really the holidays for me. So give me my movie, give me my NBA basketball, give me my Chinese food. That stereotype is real. Sorry, people. That stereotype is very real. There's nothing open except Chinese restaurants on Christmas. So we enjoy our Chinese food on Christmas Eve. But regardless of what holiday you're celebrating, the holiday season brings so many cozy moments, brings you so many times to be with your family. It really gives you a chance to reflect on your year. So no matter what you need, if you need help thinking about how to close your year strong and how to start 2025 the best, therapy can be a great way to bring yourself some comfort as well as look ahead to the new year. I don't know about you, Gavin, but I've used therapy throughout my life to help me clarify my goals, help me work through personal issues that I've had, and just feel better about things. Sometimes challenge me, but certainly feel better about things. And I think therapy can help you too. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out their brief questionnaire and you'll get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Find comfort this December and get ready for the new year with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, final segment here on this crossover episode with Philip Rossman-Reich of Locked On Magic, as well as Gavin Schall of Locked On Knicks. Well, before we get back to the train of thought we were just on, if this doesn't forget it, the last time we shared a podcast, I told you to get excited about this game, and you were pretty like, I don't know about this NBA Cup thing. I don't know if this game's gonna matter. And I'm just like, no, dude, like it. Even if the Sixers are good, which they're not, this game is gonna mean something to both teams. It's a big deal for the Magic to be on national TV. Now that we're here, the Knicks must win to advance. If they don't win, they're out. Does this game feel important to the Knicks? Does this game feel as important to Knicks fans as it does to Magic fans?
Okay, I don't care at all about the NBA Cup. I just have to. I think it is better for the Knicks probably if they do not advance, because you just end up playing tougher teams. There is no reward for it. I've argued on our pod that if you win it, you should be guaranteed a top 4 seed. I think then you would get killer competition. I think that would be a lot of fun. There's no reward right now, so I don't really see the point. But in and of itself, I think this is an incredibly important game for the New York Knicks. They have, as I mentioned earlier, struggled against great defenses, struggled against teams that switch. Like there is just not a track record so far of this offense coming out and kicking butt against a defense like Orlando's this year. And I just want to see like all the theories we have of like, this is going to be unguardable, 5 out. Jalen Brunson's all NBA. Karl-Anthony Towns, he's been through a little bit of a cold stretch. He's played like a top 5 to 10 offensive player, maybe in the entire league. 5 is strong. Let's call it top 10. OG Anunoby, before missing his last 15 threes, like he was playing like an all-star, particularly on the offensive end, shooting the heck out of the basketball. Josh Hart is shooting 72% from 2-point range, but it's so much of it is stat padding against crummy teams. Let's see it against a team like the Magic. Let's see this group step up collectively, defensively, in a game that, to your point, like there are still some weak points for Orlando offensively. And that's kind of where I want to go next, unless I'll give you a second if you want to wax poetic on your love of the NBA Cup here.
Let me tell you how great the NBA Cup
sure.
is.
Yeah, please.
Look, I am an NBA Cup enthusiast. I think this is a great idea. I think it does. It gives look, the NBA Cup is not the NBA Finals. It's not the NBA playoffs. It's not the end of the world if you don't make it in advance. But for a young team like the Magic, this competition is tailor-made for them to get the experience of what pressure games are like. Last year, the Magic missed out on advancing, and it was really important for them to advance because of the Celtics beating the Bulls by like 35 on the last day of the season, or last day of NBA Cup play. I think that for them, this does mean something. You know, it's Madison Square Garden, national spotlight on national TV. That is not something the Magic get a lot. You know, they have before this season, they've had only one national TV game on TNT or ESPN since Paolo Banchero was drafted before the playoffs. This year they had 5. This one got taken away and then given back to them because it was a cup game that mattered. I think the Magic have never won a league-wide trophy, so I think that is enticing for a franchise that wants a trophy, wants something in their trophy case, and wants something to celebrate. But beyond the NBA Cup, the same reasons you said this game is important for the Knicks are the same reasons it's important for the Magic. Like I said, they haven't faced a lot of teams that are top offensive teams. So their defense is good. Don't get me wrong. They're still a really good defense. But they still have to prove themselves against elite competition. Last year, the Magic had, I believe, the fewest wins among all teams that made the postseason. So all 20 teams that made the postseason. They had the fewest or the second fewest wins against teams with records above 500. I will note 3 of them were against the Knicks. 1 was the last game before the Emmanuel Quickley RJ Barrett trade. 1 was without Jalen Brunson in Madison Square Garden. And 1 was the last game before the All-Star break, which is, you know, who knows? Those games are always wonky. Yeah. The one that we all really cared about was the one at Madison Square Garden in, I believe it was early March. The Knicks blitzed the Magic. They made Anthony Black look like a rookie. And it just looked like the Magic weren't ready for that stage or that level. This year, the Magic have only 3 wins against teams that are currently at 500 or better. The Miami Heat on opening night, they're at 500. I don't think anyone's confusing them for what we think the Miami Heat boogeyman is. At Phoenix, without Kevin Durant, without Bradley Beal, and then at the Lakers, which was second night of back-to-back on a buzzer beater because Anthony Davis missed a ton of free throws, but a really nice win. I don't know where the Knicks stand on that part on that record, or if they have, you know, they had that nice win against Denver. Like they have some nicer wins. I think they're a little bit more proven. The Magic still have to prove themselves that they're not just a nice playoff team. They are a top 3-4 team in the East that can threaten if the matchups break right to win a championship and win the Eastern Conference championship. That's kind of what's on the line for me in this game. Is the Magic have to kind of serve notice to the league that, hey, we're not just the bright team. We're just not the team of the future. We're here now.
Yeah, I think basically aside from Boston, who doesn't have anything to prove, and Cleveland, who's just been so good, you have to take it seriously. No one in the East has really proven anything, right? Like you are stepping over the corpses of like strewn cupcake wrappers when you look at like the track record of all these teams. So like any game like this is a measuring stick moment. And it does, like, in that sense, like you made a college football analogy at the start with like putting the flag down. Like it feels like a big, like the first big college football game of the year. Like I'm an Oklahoma fan. And before we went to the SEC, it was cupcakes every single game until we played Texas. Right. And like, that was the litmus test. It feels like the Knicks have had some tests, but it does feel a little bit like that, especially for someone like Mikal Bridges, who again, like had a breakout game, Pelicans doesn't count. Great. Let's see him do it again against Orlando. Because to me, like my biggest concern when I talk about like the switching and everything, I'm like, all right, how does this, like the Knicks pace, the Knicks ball movement, how does it translate to playoff basketball? I know it will translate to some proportion, but we've seen in years past the Knicks have a really good playoff offense that just tanks when they get to April. And I think this game, to your point, not a playoff game, but maybe that type of environment, I want to see it work. And for it to work, like Towns is going to have to create stuff out of nothing. Mikal, who hasn't really done it this year, is going to have to create stuff out of nothing. And the last question I had for you is like, I'm fascinated to see how Orlando does that. Again, against the Knicks defense that maybe hasn't performed great, but personnel-wise, like puts some really talented guys out there. Right? Like OG Anunoby, like case for the best, like along with all the guys in Orlando, like best.
I mean, OG's going to be guarding Franz, right?
Yeah,
like
I would assume
Franz,
so.
yeah.
Because for most of the beginning of the year, the Knicks were using Mikal Bridges at the point of attack, and the exception was like supersized, really physical wings, which I think Franz falls into that. And then the other thing is that Mikal, until last night, has just not lived up to the hype at the point of attack. And OG is fresh off a game against Charlotte where he just put Brandon Miller in jail, and Brandon Miller was, I think, something like 7 of 25 from the field in that game. And then against the Pelicans, he had 7 stocks in like 30 minutes. So he's as poorly as he's shooting, he's peaking on the defensive end. But I'm curious, like, how teams have approached guarding Orlando, just doing some very low-level statistical research for the game. I've seen Jalen Suggs went from a 39% three-point shooter to a 32% three-point shooter. Anthony Black has clearly made a substantial leap. He's still only 28% from distance, if I've read that correctly. Are teams just playing way off those guys? Are they still treating Suggs like a shooter? Like, how much attention can you focus on Franz? And when teams do focus disproportionate attention on him, how does Orlando punish it?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a struggle offensively, and some of it is we don't really know what this team looks like at full force because the shooting has just been so bad. I believe they are still, even after a good shooting weekend, they're still 29th in the league in 3-point field goal percentage, and they're like getting good looks. Like, you know, a lot of teams are happy to leave them open, and so honestly, a big key in this game is, do the Magic hit enough threes early to get the Knicks to guard the 3-point line? That is a huge thing. Since Wendell Carter came back, they're getting Franz Wagner the ball in motion a lot more. So he's not just having to do standstill pick and rolls and trying to over dribble and try and pick teams apart or go matchup hunting to find a matchup that he can get downhill on. That's been a nice adjustment over the last 3 games. But again, we haven't seen it at full bore, and this Magic offense can be a slog. Like the Magic at time, the Magic are going to hold on to the ball. They want to play low possession games. They just played Brooklyn, who also likes to do this. They want to drag you into the mud and get you nice and dirty. Like they want you to feel as disgusting as their offense looks at times. And that's going to be a big part of this game is, can the Magic keep their turnovers down? I don't think you want to see New York get out in transition. Can they find gaps to attack? Is Jalen Suggs going to give them, which Jalen Suggs are we going to get? Are we going to get the one who scored 31 points the other night against Chicago, or the one who shot 6 for 17 or whatever it was against Brooklyn on Sunday? Jalen Suggs is still really effective defensively, but he can be a little wild at times. And so the Magic sometimes struggle to find that second scorer to boost everyone up. Is Goga Bitadze going to be able to clean up on the offensive glass with how good of a rebounding team the Knicks can be with Cat, with Josh Hart, with OG Anunoby around the basket? Like Goga has been able to feast on offensive rebounds a lot. The Magic have a very fine formula to make things work offensively. Their defense gives them all the cushion for error, but so many of these big games, frankly, for the Magic, will fall on whether they make threes. And it's not even about the percentage. It's about, can they just stay close to how many threes you make? If they're going to shoot 25% but make 12 threes, they got to keep you to 14 total threes. And the Magic, I think, are still first in the league. If they're not, they're certainly top 3, top 5 in fewest 3-point attempts allowed. They do a really good job chasing you off the line. It's going to be a battle like that where, the Knicks' strength is going up against the Magic's strength. Maybe the Magic's weakness is going up against the Knicks' weakness, and which team's going to crack first. And the Magic have been shooting a little bit better lately. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is kind of out of his shooting slump to start the season. It's going to be interesting to see whether those shots go down and whether the Magic are able to keep pace in this one. A lot to break down, a lot to think about. If you're interested in the Knicks, be sure to listen to Gavin on Locked On Knicks. if you're interested in the Magic, be sure to listen to me on Locked On Magic. Gavin, let my listeners know where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. You can follow along on Twitter at Locked On Knicks, tweet a bunch from there. And of course, subscribe on YouTube. I will be encouraging Knicks fans at the beginning of this episode to head over to Locked On Magic and talk some trash in the comments. And I welcome all Magic fans coming over to Locked On Knicks page and talking some friendly trash. And yeah, I can't wait to see who wins.
Yeah, and of course, you can follow me on Twitter at @PhilipR_OMD. Find my written work at OrlandoMagicDaily.com as well. And if you didn't know already, both Locked On Knicks and Locked On Magic have a daily newsletter now. You can check it out at the Locked On Magic Daily or Locked On Knicks newsletter. It's the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. Gavin, until we do this again, which I'm sure will be sooner than later, thanks for coming on the show, and we'll see you as always in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, we'll talk to you guys soon on Locked On Knicks and Locked On Magic.